Welcome to episode 2 of Handmade by Susan. Thank you so much for your kind words and encouragements for my first podcast. I've enjoyed reading all of your comments and your encouragement are greatly appreciated. Today, what I thought I'll do is share with you one of my favorite knitwear designer for children, and it's TinCanKnits. I'm sure many of you have heard of her. As mentioned in the previous episode, I have 2 children. One is 3 and the other one is 8. So over the years, I've made them so many different sweaters, and sometimes the same one, but in every size available because I just make another as they grow. And so there will be another episode that I talk about knitwear by other designers, but today will be all about TinCanKnits because I love her sweaters and her patterns so much. They are so well written, size inclusive, and anytime you pick up a TinCanKnits pattern, you just know it's going to be a joy to work with. But before we get started, I just want to take a quick moment and show you one of the sweaters that I finished beginning of this year, and this is the Weekender by Andrea Mowry. She has this pattern in 2 sizes. This is the worsted weight, and recently she came out with the fingering weight. And so this one that I made, let me stand out and just show you. It's got the split hem on the bottom. I love the way it came out. I had to knit this twice though because the first one just came out too small, but no problem. I just rip it out and started it again, and this fit is just significantly better. I should mention that usually if I make a sweater for myself and it doesn't fit well, I have absolutely no problem ripping it out and starting it all over again. So I think I'm a process knitter, but I do enjoy the finished product as well. And I find that, rather than trying to convince myself that the fit is fine or try to find somebody else who could fit into it, it's just easier to frog it and start all over. And I'm so glad I did that. And this yarn that I use is Knit Picks Wool of the Andes in Copperstone Heather. And I just love this colorway. I think it came out so beautiful, and it was a joy to knit with. So starting with TinCanKnit, all the baby wear that I have made. My first pattern that I'm going to show you, and one of my favorite, and I think many of you have seen, is the Flax sweater by TinCanKnit. There's 2 different versions. Again, there's the worsted weight and there's the fingering weight. The fingering weight version of the pattern is called Flax Light, and that's the version I'm holding here. The other version is just called Flax, and it's made with worsted weight. And so you can see, obviously this is more lightweight, this is heavier. I live in California, Bay Area, and so I find the weather fingering weight seems to be much better. Worsted just seems a little bit too heavy. So when possible, I usually go with fingering weight, especially with kids wear. I mean, it's small, it knits up really fast. I mean, doing a fingering weight yarn for an adult sweater could take significantly longer. But if it's just for little kids, I think it goes by pretty fast. I love making baby products, right? Because they are knits up so fast. It's a great way to use up your leftover yarn that you don't know what to do with. We all know we have those hidden in our stash, and it's so portable. When I used to travel a lot for my job, I would always bring a baby project or a sock yarn because it's small. It's usually 1 skein of yarn, and I'm usually sitting between 2 other people. I don't really want to have an adult size sweater like on my lap, on the floor, and bothering other people. And so I just find this just seems to be the perfect size sweater, and it's kind of like a sock basically. And so I've made it so many times I can't even tell you, and some of them I've gifted. This is a Cornmeal yarn that I picked up from Sincere Sheep. I love this shop, and the owner, she is just so nice. So I highly recommend you check out her yarn. This Cornmeal yarn, it feels it's rustic but very soft. So I think it's perfect for kids, and this is one of my favorite knitwear that I've made for my son, and it kept him warm without being too warm, right? So this is fingering weight, and it pilled a little, but keep in mind he wore this all the time when he was 2. Here's another one that I made. This is a much bigger version, as you can see, because I love the pattern so much, and all the patterns that I'm sharing with you today are things that my kids wore all the time. And so I had to make them in larger sizes. So, as they grow, we make more. And I have to highlight that this one brings back so much memory, because I remember my son was just born and there were endless hours of nursing and rocking him and changing diaper. Everything was a blur. I don't even remember what happened, but just I was really tired. And that was probably the longest time that I didn't pick up my knitting needles and knit, because any chance I have, I just wanted to sleep because I was so tired. And I remember I had a helper coming to watch my baby for a few hours, and I didn't know what to do. Like, I just remember thinking, I have 2 hours to myself. What should I do? So I picked out a skein of yarn, my knitting needles, and I went to a Starbucks nearby. And I remember I had a latte and this yarn, and I just enjoy like an hour of knitting with no interruption. I listened to the music, and I remember the stitches flying off my needle, and the yarn going through my fingers, and it felt so peaceful. And so I guess it's a good reminder that we all should take time out, and even if it's just for a few minutes, do things that bring us joy. I think it's so important. Obviously, when I came back from the coffee shop, it was, repeat with the newborn baby, but it was a good balance to just stop and take a break. So here are all the Flax Lights that I have, and obviously this is not everything that I've made, because I've also made these for my daughter as well. So I don't know where hers went. I probably donated it. Another pattern of TinCanKnits that I really love are the antlers that she's made. The antler, there are 3 patterns I use is the antler. I think it's the cable. That's what she's calling the antler. There's the Antler Pullover. There's the Antler Cardigan. And then there's the Antler Hat. Now, I'm pretty sure these were pay-for patterns. I'm not sure about this one. I think this is probably pay-for as well. And this Antlers Pullover was just so much fun to make. This only comes in one size of yarn, which is the one type of yarn. This is the worsted weight yarn. This does not come in fingering weight. So it is a little bit more kind of warmer on the warmer side, but it's so cute. It doesn't matter. And then I remember for the neckline, I did a tubular cast on, so it's a more rounder edge, which I love. And once you learn it, it's really not that hard, and it's totally worth it. So, this cable pattern just goes by so fast, and before you know it, you're at the body. And this is my favorite part, where it's just miles and miles of stockinette stitches, right? So I made one, and because it was so much fun, I made another. And the yarn I used is the Taki Yarns Classic Super Wash that I bought from Webb's. So I'm sure it's on the Webb's website. Now I'll list the name of the yarn here. I highly recommend it. This yarn feels really good, feels really solid, and it feels like it could go through a lot of beating with your kids, running around all day. It's perfect. And these were all worn, and look how new they look. This is the cardigan pullover that I made. I'm sorry, this is the Antler Cardigan version that I made, and it's pretty much the same thing, except it opens up in the front here. And this is Malabrigo that I use, and I think it's also size 6 and 7 needle. The hat is just super cute. I mean, this was so fun. The cable pattern makes this a super fast knit. I feel like you cast on and then you blink and then you're ready to cast off, because you're also decreasing. And so it flies up your needle. And I love little pom-pom for kids. And so of course I had to pop one on. This brings back a memory though. I remember I brought my daughter with me to the yarn shop, and she picked out this purple. She loves purple. She picked out this color. And I also had her pick out 7 more colors, because there were a couple kids at her preschool, this was many years ago, that she was really close with, and we would go on play dates together. And when you're at the park at 5 in the afternoon, it gets chilly. And so I made these for all her friends, and I remember taking a picture and trying really hard to have all these little 3-year-olds lined up with their hat on, and some refuse to put it on. The other ones are just running all over the place. But eventually, all the parents got the kids to stay together so I could take a group shot of all of them wearing this hat. So that was so much fun. I still remember that to this day. The last pattern I'm going to highlight is my favorite thing to dress my kids in, especially in the winter, it's the baby vest. I just find them so easy to dress your kid in, and it gives them the flexibility and freedom to still move their arms. And it just seems to be, I think it's the best thing. But there aren't that many vest patterns out there. If you have one that you've knit, please let me know. I love them, and I find all the recipients love them as well. Sometimes they will ask if I could make more, and of course, no problem, as many as you need. And so usually my kids will have more than one at a time. I usually will have 3 vests in their closet because we wear them all the time. When one is in the washer, I still have 2 more to go. And usually I make them all in superwash so that the innocent father who accidentally throw them into the washing machine won't get in trouble. And so this one is a yarn called Baby Bee Sweet Delight that I got from Hobby Lobby. I was in Florida for a work trip, and I had brought a pair of socks to work on, and somehow, I don't know what happened, must have been a super long flight. It really wasn't, it's only a few hours. I finished before I even arrived at my destination, and I thought, well, I'm in trouble. Like, what am I supposed to do on my way back? So there was a Hobby Lobby next to the hotel in Florida that I stayed at. So I picked out this yarn and whipped this up. Again, perfect travel project. And this is yarn that I picked out when I traveled for work to Idaho. It was one of the cutest yarn shops I've ever been to. I don't remember the name, but if I can find it, I'll put it on the screen, because people at the shop were so kind to me. They were so nice. And I remember it was a Tuesday night probably, and they had knit night, and every single person at that knit night was just so kind and so wonderful. And I think that's true for all people in Idaho. I know I'm kind of biased when I say that because I've only been there twice, but I feel like every single person I meet in Idaho, you are just so kind. So thank you for your hospitality every time I visit your state. So this is one of the yarn that I picked out. It's Rowan Tweed, I think. And I love it. It's kind of rustic, but still soft. The blue yarn I picked up from my local yarn shop, and this is a Rowan Mordell yarn. And the original peanut pattern, so this is the peanut pattern by TinCanKnits. I don't know if I mentioned that. The vest is actually not as deep, but I like the V deeper because otherwise I find the neck a little bit too tight for my kid. So what I do is you start from the bottom, you cast on from the bottom, and then you knit up to kind of where you think the neckline should be, and this is kind of where you start doing the V-neck. So I just started it sooner than what the pattern called for, and I have all the modifications available on my Ravelry page if you're interested. Now with this yarn, with this particular project, I ended up doing the pattern because there was only one skein of this green left, and I think I was on a trip somewhere, and so I had to make do with what I had. So I had this yarn left over with me, so I just combined this so I could still make a vest out of it, and I like the way it came out. And so again, this is also rustic yarn, and I love this yarn so much. It's rustic, but it's soft. I don't think this is superwash though, but sometimes when things are beautiful, it's worth washing it by hand. So, I just grabbed these from my son's closet, and I'm sure I've made more in the past. Don't know what I did with them, probably donated it or gifted them. And there's another vest pattern that I love, and I will talk about that in part 2, where I share other knitwear designer for children clothing with you next time. And I know I said that was the last pattern, but I lied. There's actually one more. Check this out.
Sorry, I couldn't hear.
Gramps sweater by TinCanKnits, and it's adorable. Just look at this. Look at these little pockets. So I don't know what a 2-year-old is going to do with their pockets. Maybe for their little cars for my son, but I can tell you he never uses his pocket. He only wants to hold his car in his hand. There's no way he's going to part with that, put it in his pocket. But the pockets are just so cute. I couldn't omit this, you know, I had to make these. I think I've actually made 3 because they're so cute. This was made with Cascade Superwash 220. I love that yarn for kids. I think they're just perfect. They come in so many different colors. You never get bored. They're, you know, available pretty much everywhere. And I used a US size 6 and 8 needle. That's usually the size I use for worsted weight. So I love this one. And if you are thinking to cast on something for kids, I highly recommend this one. And they just look so cute when they're all dressed up with the collar here. Her pattern, I remember knitting this collar and has so much fun. Like I just remember following the direction. I had no idea what I was doing, but it came out exactly the way it should. And I think that's the magic of the pattern, is you just follow it as is, and it's so well written. I've never caught a mistake with any of her patterns, so I enjoy it. Hopefully you can see how much I enjoy making baby knits, because like I said, they're just super fun. They knit up fast. They are portable. If you have never made a sweater before and you're contemplating or thinking about starting one, I highly recommend that you start with either Flax Light or Flex by TinCanKnits, because I feel like it's pretty basic and you just cast on more stitches and it just takes longer to make for an adult version, but the concept is the same. So, you know, you start at the collar, the neckband, and then you place stitch markers on the front and back of the sweater, and then you just do, you know, you increase on each side of your stitch marker 4 times, and you just keep increasing until you are done to not cast off, but to put the sleeves on hold. And then you just knit the rest of the body round and round and round. And then you cast off, and then you pick up the stitches that you've left on the holder and you make the sleeves. And, you know, obviously if you want to go ahead and, you know, just try making an adult sweater, that's fine too. But I just find that sometimes, unfortunately, when you're learning how to knit something new, you have to rip things out when you've made a mistake. And it's just easy to rip out, you know, a small section of a baby sweater versus an entire adult size sweater that you spend hours on, right? I mean, this is probably like, I don't know, like a few hours versus like a few weeks of an adult sweater. I mean, I feel like baby sweater is just a great way to go. And basically in my closet of my sewing room, I have a section of baby knits that I have finished, and they're just hanging there, never worn and ready to be gifted. Like I said, you know, sometimes I need to go somewhere and I need a project, and baby knits are just a perfect thing for me to grab and go and knit. And so I just find that I always end up with a lot of baby knits, and so I just put them away in my closet. And when I know someone is expecting, I would, you know, pick out a sweater that's age appropriate, weather appropriate, and gender neutral. You know, sometimes I make them in pink, blue, or gray. I give myself option, because I never know. Sometimes they don't know what they're expecting. And so in terms of ages, for example, if the baby is due in June and you're about to gift this person a sweater, you wouldn't want to give them a sweater that's for newborn, because nobody's going to be wearing that in the summer. So you want to gift them something that's probably 6 to 12 months old. So by the time winter comes, they can actually wear it. So that's a suggestion I have, that you want to think about when the baby will be wearing this knitwear. And I always tend to make it slightly bigger, because I feel like with babies, they grow so fast, right? So if they're bigger, you know, eventually they'll fit into it. But if it's too small, that's it. Like they won't get any smaller. It's just not going to fit. And so usually what I do is I would pick out a knitwear from my closet. I would do a gift card or a teddy bear, and a handmade card. That's usually my go-to welcome baby gift. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I've given you a few ideas and patterns for baby sweaters or cardigan or hats or any of these items that are adorable for little kids. I will be recording another episode on baby knitwears by other designers. Well, actually not just baby, but children as well. So be on the lookout for those. And thanks very much for taking the time to sit with me and listen to my stories with knitting. So I'll see you again next time. Bye.